So should it be any shocker that we're
Mhm.
lonely and we're isolated and we're depressed when community's really been an afterthought and relationships and
Mhm.
friendships have really been an afterthought, and all we do is prioritize work, we prioritize Netflix by
Yeah.
accident, by autopilot, and then
Mhm. Yeah.
we're by ourselves. Here with
Brendan Haug.
Brendan. So fun meeting you this weekend. We're at a young adult conference, a ton of people on fire for Jesus. Do you have a question about adulting?
Yeah, my question would be, how do we move through the different areas of our life, whether that's being young 20s, with jobs, working? How does that look like, the transition from that to being maybe older 20s, young 30s with kids and getting married?
Oh my gosh, it's like there's so many friendships and contagious community. How do you build those lifelong relationships? That's what you're asking?
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Let's go. We'll unpack it on FYI Podcast. Phileo, friendships, brotherly, sisterly love. And today's episode is brought to you by the Minnesota Young Adult Weekend this May 16th through 18th.
We will be meeting at Lake Geneva, where about 200 to 300 young adults gather together to worship, to unplug, to experience deep, meaningful friendships with each other, but also with the Lord. So come sign up, join us. Even if you're by yourself, people sign up all over the state and they come by themselves and they leave with a group of friends.
So you can visit the link in the show notes. It's youngadults.today/the-WK and be pumped for the weekend. We want to see you there.
Mhm.
And speaking of which, a great resource that we want to put in your hands this month is Fulfill Your Purpose in Your Generation.
Yeah.
And this is a book where you get to discover the life of David. It said in Acts 16:33 that King David fulfilled the purpose that God had for him in his generation.
Mhm.
You're not going to be able to do it alone. You need the help of a Christ-centered relationship with God, and you need others around you. And this book is great. It's a study guide for small groups. It's great as an individual. If you need your next read this spring, the link is in the show notes. You can pick up your copy, Fulfill Your Purpose in Your Generation. And today's episode is presented by
GFA World, one of our favorite sponsors who is part of this podcast. And what it is offering you the potential opportunity to join. If you're called to missions, if you're called to ministry, want hands-on experience, they have 3-month internships where you actually get paid to go learn how to do that. You get to live on campus. The location is down in Texas. And if you want to apply for that program or find out more about that, check that out in the show notes as well.
gfa.org/apprenticeship. And so last thing, y'all, be sure you're dialed in on Instagram at FYI Podcast. Be sure you submit your questions about friendship, loneliness, isolation, building and creating, cultivating contagious community. As a young adult, we're cheering you on. Send in the questions. We'll see you back here every Friday this March. Phileo.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the FYI podcast. I'm Micah Keneally.
I'm Josiah Keneally. We're your hosts. This is a podcast about young adulting. We unpack your questions as the listener and the viewer on YouTube through Instagram. So follow along, get subscribed, share this with your friends, your roommates, your ministries, your family members. If they're a young adult, especially if they have questions or you have questions about adulting, finances, relationships, love, sex, dating, the future. We're in a series called Phileo.
Yeah.
And Phileo is
Brotherly love, or if you want to say sisterly love, but
for sure.
actually means brotherly
This
love.
is like a dearly loved friend.
Mhm.
And I want you to pause right now, wherever you're listening. Don't close your eyes if you're driving, of course, but I want you to answer this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with the community in your life?
Are you asking me that right now?
And yeah, I want to give a pause. Like the pause wasn't like we don't know where we're going. The pause was like, okay,
Think about it. Take an inventory.
Yeah. Like if you were to give a 1 being the lowest, a 10 being the highest, how satisfied are you with the community in your life? And babe, if you want to jump in, you totally can.
Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna be honest with the audience today. I'm literally a 5.
Okay.
I think there's so much room for me to grow. I think it's a 5 because I'm in a very unique season where it's literally we have a 4-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old daughter, a 2.5-year-old ministry, and a baby on the way. Like I am just in a birthing season
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
dreams and people. And I feel like that can be very isolating, not always by choice, but just by the busyness of life and the demands that have been placed on me that I'm grateful for, don't get me wrong. But I feel like along the way, friendships have shifted and changed as my life has grown and if I have grown in Christ. Um, that could be other people have walked away from Christ, they've grown away, or they've physically moved away. So I'm just in this like wanted ad of like deep, meaningful friendships. Wanted, where I don't have to be your pastor. I can just be your friend.
Man, and maybe you're there. Maybe you've been there, or maybe you're listening today to prepare for when you're there. Because Brennan's question was remarkable. He's aware, just out of college, young professional,
Mhm.
single in his life, but wanting someday to be married, maybe to have kids. And so he's recognizing, like, whoa, there's more responsibility,
Mhm.
there's less freedom.
Mhm.
How do we navigate friendships, community, and relationships? And we're going to unpack a couple of the reasons why that's different in your 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
And also, we're going to unpack a few practical next steps if you are looking to build relationships. I'll chime in with my answer to that satisfaction scale.
I
Um,
can't say anything over a 10, just so you
Correct.
know that.
Correct. I would say mine is a 7. My a 7 out of 10. So I am well into the beyond halfway.
Hmm.
I'm on the desirable side, but I think with the season of life that we are in, called to the responsibilities of home ownership, of a
Yeah.
car that was just totaled, of a vehicle search, of a baby being on the way, of a ministry where we have a team that we're leading, multiple teams that we're leading multiple podcasts every week. We travel and preach, we plan events. There's a lot going on, and I have those lifelong friendships forged.
Hmm.
They're developed. It's where am I being intentional
Hmm.
to invest and they're cultivated.
Right.
It's just where am I putting that as a priority on the calendar? Because what, as we've said often on this
Hmm.
show, what gets put on the calendar gets done. And so even this week, there's 2 mentors that I'm going to be reaching out to.
Hmm.
I celebrate last week. I went for a walk with a friend. I had lunch with 2 friends. So it's there. It's on me to prioritize it.
But
And
I just want to say, even if you're listening today and Josiah's forged these, he's lived in this state, in this community his entire life,
Mhm,
33 years of life.
mhm.
So I just want to talk to the person who's maybe just moving. I've only been here for 10 years. And it's like I started having my people, but my people were on my college campus when I went back to school, but they were like 10 years younger than me. Very different ages, stage of life. Does not negate the fact that friendship can be built, but very different seasons and desires as you get older, right? And how those things shift, change, or grow, but also like taking root where you're at. So some of your people have become my people. Some of your
100%
couples that were married
for sure.
before we were even married have become our couples. So it's like, yes, they are forged. Now, how are we stewarding them? And I just want to encourage even just myself and Josiah when I say this is let's not allow the calling of what God's calling us to, quote unquote, or the busyness of life forfeit friends in the process. And it can't become an excuse along the way. So I just think we're in a very unique season, and maybe you find yourself to be in that similar season. But there is a time and place where it's like, whoa, when I do sit back, do I have those friendships and where are they? And am I being intentional with them?
If you're listening and you're part of a church, if you have a pastor, check on your pastors. I would say what they do is similar to a car mechanic in that everybody's car breaks down and everyone wants their
Mhm.
mechanic's advice for free. And your pastor is somebody who is often pouring out and everyone wants something from them
Mhm.
and they don't always get checked on. How are
Mhm.
they doing? Touch base with them. It means a lot. And
Mhm.
the other thing, babe, you know what I've never really heard of before?
I have no idea. Tell me.
I've never really heard of somebody saying, I'm moving across the country. Do you know why?
Why?
Because my friends are there.
Never heard that in my life. I mean, unless you're going on a road trip together, but nobody I've ever come across will
Right. Like,
move to
right.
be closer to a group of
Right.
friends if they
What I
maybe have
hear
gone
almost
back home
every day
home.
what I hear almost every day is somebody who's moving across the country because they're offered a new job. They
Yeah.
took a promotion, work related move,
Yeah.
career related move, college related move, not the community. So like it's also, I've heard it once or twice, but it's very rare that somebody turns down a move because they're so satisfied with
Mm-hmm.
community. They're like they're moving to be a part of a church community, like other than pastor friends of ours
Right.
who do a cross country move because they're like called to plant or lead or work somewhere. Like very rarely will somebody order and orchestrate their life build around God's mission and God's people. So should it be any shocker that we're
Mm-hmm.
lonely and we're isolated and we're depressed when community's really been an afterthought and relationships and
Mm-hmm.
friendships have really been an afterthought, and all we do is prioritize work. We prioritize Netflix by
Yeah.
accident, by autopilot, and then
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're by ourselves. And so diving into today's verse of the day, it comes from Proverbs 27 verse 9. Proverbs 27 verse 9 says in the NIV, perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantries of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice.
That's good.
Friendship is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Friendship is incredible. It's one of God's greatest gifts in our life. And so, if you are looking to build intentional friendships, I want to touch on something first. Micah, why is developing friends in your 20s and 30s different than in your childhood or adolescence?
Oh my gosh. Well, think about it. No matter where you grew up, whether you're homeschooled, in a school system, private, public, whatever, you look around the classroom like, oh, these are my new friends. Like you're put in a room with 22 other people, or maybe 200, whatever
Like
that is.
assigned seating and
Yeah,
assigned
it's
friendships.
assigned seating. You're sharing a desk, you're sharing a locker, whatever that looks like, or your lockers are all in alphabetical order. Like you're by the
You're on the
same two
team together,
people.
you're in band,
Yeah.
you ride the bus.
Yeah. So it's like you are you are forced into a community of people that become your friends. It's
Yeah,
molded and made around you.
very proximity based.
Yes, absolutely. And then you go and then you start playing sports, like you said, your summer activities, and then you make it to second grade. And then you get all the way to 12th grade. And like, granted, like maybe you're traveling basketball teams, you got some stuff going there, like, but there's some form of teamship or camaraderie. Then you get on a college campus, and then you are engaging with the people that are living on your floor, the people who are
Kind
the
of built
freshmen in
in.
class, the people who
Yeah,
are in your classrooms.
yeah,
So it's built in once again. And they'll even say, like, in a college room dorm, the likeliness of you doing life with somebody that lives right across the hallway from you is like 95%.
wild.
But 5 doors down at the end of the hallway, the likeliness of you doing life with them is like between 20 and 30%. Like the likeliness of you doing life with them probably doesn't exist. And they're 5 doors down, you know?
We're taught in
So,
Western culture to go after the low-hanging fruit with friends.
yeah. Does that mean lazy, you think?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I do. I do. I think low-hanging fruit.
Intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, oh, it's built in, like, hey man, you're my neighbor. But yeah, but I mean, and then I think when you get into the real world, so you're 22, 23, 24, starting your real job, getting out there, you get that office job or wherever you want to land, and you're like, these are my people now?
It's
Like,
like for the
these are
first
my
time in your
friends that I
life,
have to choose from?
it's in an intergenerational workplace. It's not just
Yeah.
people that all like some of them work there 17 months, 17 years, 17 weeks, and you're all thrust into
Yeah.
projects and teams together. And there's kind of a hierarchy or almost caste between different layers of leadership or management
Totally.
in certain workplaces and environments.
Yeah. So I think like how do you develop friendships in a workplace that maybe you're the only Christian and then you're put in this sphere of people or you have nothing in common with them.
Yep. Or
The only
even
commonality is that you work at the same location and you share cubicles that are all the way down this hallway together.
And then let's say you visit a church on a Sunday, and if you've done this as a listener, you probably have. So you know that like, wow, everyone else is married and has kids. And so it's kind of like the what about me? What about us? What it's almost hard to relate
Hmm.
with people who maybe drive a Cadillac. It might be harder to relate with people who drive a minivan. If
Hmm.
you're in that coupe lifestyle of
Hmm.
you've got a two-seater or maybe a sedan, like it's a little bit different than the soccer mom with the minivan. It's a little bit different than the Cadillac with the handicap sticker. And there's just different seasons of life for all of us.
Hmm.
And I think that the bottom line is for Brennan, the biggest thing is
Mhm.
intentionality would be if I could summarize today's
Yeah.
podcast in a single
Yeah.
word, it's be intentional because that's what we're called to do. Friendship doesn't really happen by accident or autopilot, but it happens the most rewarding, authentic, meaningful ones through a
Yeah.
great deal of intentionality and prioritization of valuing
Yeah.
each other's not just interests, but time and sharing life together, sharing meals together, sharing family together, sharing confession together. And this is
Mhm.
where campus ministries, churches, small groups, like it's probably not enough to go on Sundays and feel relationally fulfilled in your life from only worship. Like it's missing that fellowship
Mhm.
component that God's designed and orchestrated us
Yeah.
for.
Yeah, it makes me think of something that Andy Stanley was talking about in one of his sermons. I don't remember the sermon series, but I'm like, this is stuck with me. And it's maybe not the same exact words that he used, but essentially, it poses a question like, what if we truly went after friendships that were faith filled, people on fire for Jesus, having your back with like the best intentionality, like of intimacy with each other through conversation and through pursuing the Lord, versus basing our friendships specifically on extracurricular activities or things that we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So, for instance, it's like I have a friend who loves riding horses and she shows horses. It's like a beauty pageant for horses. She does a great job. She's won so many things. And she had this realization as she became more in love with the Lord, like these really, like I'm passionate about this, but these people really aren't my people, but they all had one thing in common. They loved showing their horses. So that's the commonality that held that small group of friends together for the longest time. And there was a falling through and a breaking away of all of that. But what she did realize is like, wow, I need real, raw, true, authentic community that loves Jesus, loves me, has things in store for me, like as a friend. So I just think of that, like, let's base our friendships off of Jesus, and not just what we're interested in, interest groups, essentially. So I would just say, like, some very practical things.
We're going to close like four practical things
Yeah.
to get more intentional with friendships.
Yeah. I would say number one, be the person of the first ask.
Somebody's got to invite.
Yeah, initiate. Ask them out for coffee. Hey, I'd love to hear your story. Like, you intrigue me for some reason. Like, I feel like we could be really good friends. My friend Whitney did that on a mission trip. She's like, I was told to get to know you, and now she's one of my lifelong friends, but I don't live in proximity with her.
Yep.
The relationship's forged, but it's not in proximity. The second one is a friendship takes time to build. Be authentic, be real, be transparent. Don't be like surface level friends. Like, I just go straight for the heart right away. I'm like, dude, how's your heart? Like,
Yeah.
if what's God teaching you? Like, I ask those questions, not like, what do you like to do?
With number one and two, I'm holding up my iPhone for a second because it's going to take you getting in the driver's seat of your life and doing the thing that this is called a phone. And the one thing that we don't do with it is call people.
Yeah.
It's like we shop, we have apps, we watch games, we could watch movies,
Yeah.
social media, you can scroll, but like, when's the last phone call that you had with a friend? When's the
Hmm.
last time you used it to set up a walk, a meal, a
Yeah.
coffee?
Sure.
It's
And you're in a public place, put it down to actually see people's eyeballs.
there it is.
That's the other side of
There
it,
it
right?
is.
Like, let's set it down and
Yeah.
stop standing behind it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The third one is like, talk about your expectations. And these aren't like, I expect you to be at my beckoning call. I think it's expectations for you. Like, define friendship. Like, what does friendship mean to you? A friendship, like, is it a seasonal friendship? Is it just a proximity friendship in a relationship? Like, what is it? Is it a lifelong friendship that you're wanting to build? And one thing that I love that Josiah did on our wedding or for our wedding party, he's like, hey, like, I'm not asking you as a man to be in our wedding just to stand with me. I'm asking you to stand with me for a lifetime.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that you enter friendship with that much
Some people
praise,
do though.
but
I think maybe more of us should. Like I heard Andy Crouch, and I've probably said it on this show a couple times, but it's on my heart to share it again. Like Andy, this author, I heard him share about his group of friends that they go on a friendship retreat every year,
mm-hmm,
multiple days. There's like 6 of them. They each get 3 hours to share about their entire life updates. They pray over every single one. It's unhurried. They do life together. They call themselves the eulogists because they are committed until kind of death do them part. Like at each other's funerals, they will be the ones
yeah,
who are reading each other's eulogies. And
mhm,
so that's like almost the highest standard of friendship I've ever heard of. But if we're on a spectrum from low-hanging fruit
Yeah.
to eulogists, you get to choose as a listener, like, what are you going to settle for and what are you going to strive for?
Yeah, the last thing I would say is you have to identify your friendships in a sense of this. Are your are the pennies in your pocket just making noise, tweeting on your phone, DMing you, like
Yeah. Is
liking
this the
things?
comment club?
Comment club, like do they even know who you are? Like, are they pennies just making noise in your pockets, or are they $100 bills that you don't want to break, you treat differently, you think, how am I going to spend my time with this person today, what are we going to talk about? And my prayer for you as a listener today, that you would start praying and ushering in some $100 bills, that you would be a $100 friend and you would have some $100 friendships, meaning that you would treat them differently, that they're around for the long haul, and you don't want to break them. You don't want to spend it. You're wise with it, right? So I just want to like identify who are the people that are just making a bunch of noise in your life, causing drama, you've outgrown, not following the Lord, just cause more havoc than actually heavenly blessings. And then identify what kind of dollar bill are they. And it's not to cut people out, it's to take an inventory of like, wow, do I want to sit at this 3 hour meeting with this person at supper? And am I going to go away exhausted
Exactly.
or filled? And there's been people where Josiah and I early in ministry would take every meeting that somebody wanted to meet with us. And we would sit there for like 2, 3 hours in our home having a conversation. And I would be like, Josiah, I'll be honest with you. I don't ever have to do that again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
just I just don't foresee friendship with them. I don't think I ever have to do that again. And that's okay. Oh, I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Every yes is a no to something or someone
Right.
else. And so who are you spending your time with, and who are the friendships that you will truly treasure? And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'll see you back here right next week on Friday with a brand new episode of Phileo, a series on the FYI podcast.